Welcome to the What's Lacking podcast. It's your host, Larry Atencia. With me today is Omari Hudson. How old are you and where are you from, Omari?
I am 36. I'm originally from Oakland, California. I currently live in Long Beach, California.
What do you do for a living?
I am a professional licensed barber. I have to put that out there because a lot of people are claiming a profession without their paperwork.
That is true. That is true. I myself cut my own hair.
You still haven't
So
got out there yet?
no, I completely gave up after the pandemic. So I did find someone, and then it just got too crazy for me, and I went on YouTube and started just doing it myself, and I didn't go back. It's not as sharp as when you used to cut my hair. It's not as good as professional licensed barbers such as yourself, but the sort of interactions and actions of certain barbers during the pandemic just soured me on the
Well,
whole.
that was a wild time. That was a wild time. The profession has significantly been altered from the pandemic. I can say that for sure, in terms of not just prices, but in terms of attitudes and Hollywood lifestyle. I'm like, there's a boycott that's imminent at some point, and I'm like, y'all gonna make it rough out here for those of us who know how to conduct ourselves.
Yeah, and when we first met, the reason why I went back religiously was that you were professional, you were on time, and you ran a business the way that I thought it should be ran, as opposed to lots of people in Oakland, in New York, in Philly, and it's hard to find people such as yourself to just have that professional business relationship. And so I was just kind of done, especially after the pandemic. What was already a difficult process of finding good people, barbers, became well nigh impossible.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, things change. And it's not just the age of the barber either. They try to make it like it's a young person thing. Like, no, it's a mindset. There's a lot of older people who are on professionalism. Real tough.
I still want to say that the best experience I've ever had with any barber has been with you, and our initial business professional relationship blossom into a personal friendship that is, one of the best ones that I have, and you're a special friend in my life in person.
Man, that feeling is mutual, bro. Because I always bring up random conversations you and I've had before in the past. Or I find myself in the shop like, dang, Larry told me something like this years ago. Here I am. Like, I always think about things we talked about all the time. Like, man, Larry, Larry's a cool dude. I just
Yeah, and that was the thing too about the barbershop and just the sort of relationship that we had, is that when you do find a good barber such as yourself, it becomes not just a matter of getting your hair cut, but also a therapy session, a political education, sports talk, relationship talk, women talk. It's one of those parts of our lives where we tend to just be transparent, open, and just very much willing to share all types of information, knowledge, wisdom. And so I do miss that a lot. But you're also, special in that sense that you're someone who I could have had deep, resonant conversations with, and not everyone you're able to have those with.
well, because a lot of times those conversations they can lead down a dark road of personal attacks. This is over. Instead of just sticking to the depth of the conversation where it should be at. You should be able to agree, disagree, and still maintain a. Well, also that was lost for a couple of years. I don't know whether people blame politics, Trump,
Yeah.
Obama, whoever you want to blame. I don't want to get into that. It's just we lost it for a couple. I think people are now getting back to realize we should be able to agree to disagree and leave the personal attacks out of it.
I agree with you completely. So, first question: are you married?
No,
Do you have any children?
one child, Ziana. She just made 20 months on Friday.
Oh, shout out to Sienna. Care to delve a little bit deeper into your relationship with Sienna's mother, and why you're not married, why you're not together, or if you are together but not married, etc.
I'll do cliff notes because Ruth would be upset if I died.
No, exactly. It's whatever or however you want to share.
Okay. We are not together. We do have a great relationship right now. There's still, things in there obviously because you make a baby with somebody and you're not together, there's gonna be some issues. But for the most part, we're actually really good. We're able to talk about her, interact with each other in a healthy way. More healthy than honestly I thought would be. And I think she deserves a lot of credit for that. I do too, but she deserves more of it because, typically a lot of times you won't get that when you're split in that regards to a relationship. But we are pretty healthy, so I think that's about as best I can describe it without getting too detailed.
And I think it's great that you guys are co-parenting and getting along. And I think it's important for Tiana and just children in general to have parents who are modeling good behavior in terms of getting along and being cordial and civil, even if you're not living in the same home or together romantically. So I think that's super important, especially now, in 2024, where it seems that lots of children are going to have parents who are not going to be together, and so it becomes important for parents to be able to move forward in a way that's going to give their children the ability and opportunity to not somehow get scarred or traumatized by toxic contentious parental relationships.
True. Oh, it's true because there's some nasty ones out here.
Yes, exactly. What was your relationship like with your parents growing up?
That's a more fascinating conversation. So there would be gaps where I wouldn't see my dad, not because like legal stuff, but because at that point him and my mom had split up. He moved to Sacramento and he had his own life out there, a family. So I was always with my mom all the time. I would go out there every so often. My dad had more kids. I had more siblings pop up, so go out there and visit. Eventually, I want to say when I was 21 in '08, they got back together and got married on the low. So now they've been together ever since. So now we're talking about 15 plus years together that they've been together. So she moved back to Sac, and so it was a whole process of going through that because the way they went about it was almost high schoolish in a sense. Where like you sneaking around corners for 2 years, y'all grown, within once we all got past it, it was like, all right, whatever. We here now. So,
Yeah.
Everything became fine.
Yeah, that is a fascinating story. Usually don't see that happening very often.
Yeah, I think it was when my dad, he had to have kidney surgery.
Okay.
He was going through dialysis and finally got approved for a kidney. And then I think that's what restarted their connection around that time. And they did it in such a way where like none of us knew. 'Cause I remember when she told me. And then when she told my grandmother, everybody was like, wait, what? Like,
Yeah.
oh, what? Y'all didn't tell anybody? Like, I found out the day before they went to the courthouse and got married. Everyone else found out the day after they got married. I was like, y'all just wilding.
Do you know why they proceeded in that manner? Or
Well, one thing I kind of don't and do like at the same time is that my mom and I have like a line where there's conversations we have, but like we won't indulge too much because of our age difference, and I appreciate that. Also, sometimes just things I want to know, like why did y'all move about this like we were in high school? But at certain points you just say, man, I ain't got time to be worried about this. I used to ask, now I get to, oh, well, that's just what we decided to do. Well, that's just life. I'm like, okay, these are not answers, but
yeah. And it is their life, right? So whatever they want to share, they will share, or whenever they want to share, if ever, right? So it's interesting because sometimes we assume that our parents just need to live their lives to benefit us as children, and they need to like sacrifice everything of their identity and just their personality to us. And in reality, they're their whole selves, separate from their identity as mothers or fathers. And so, I think that's something that has become more important with me as I've gotten older. And so I think it's mature of you, and sort of it's cool to see that your mom is letting you know that she doesn't have to share everything with you just because you're her son. And
it always helps that not only in later 30s, it helps that when you start going through stuff, because we have this judgment of morality in our teens and early 20 mid 20s, even of what you should or shouldn't do. You live a little bit more life, you make some more mistakes, you're like, oh well, I understand where my parents are coming from, kind of get why they did that. So I know you're gonna go through with Tamara, I'm gonna go through with Ziana in terms of that morality judgment, and then hopefully later in life they realize, oh, your reasons.
yeah. What was your experience in the educational system?
It was kind of all over the place. You were a teacher in the Bay, so Oakland Unified School District was not the best. It was interesting. I do look back sometimes and I wonder what would have happened if I had taken things more seriously. If I took it serious enough. It kind of doesn't help when class sizes are overwhelming. Teachers are only able to do so much. A lot of it probably could have benefited from a smaller class group to be able to not have some of the teachers overrun, which happens a lot. I feel like in these bigger cities, especially in the public schools, in the public school system, even now in the charter system, they make those schools for the ability to give kids more, one-on-one or more focused education, and they can't get it because everything's so overrun. It's not like money's getting sent to the school district either, because I don't know. I mean, you grew up in New York, you've seen old phone numbers are writing in some of these books. Some of these books weren't updated, and depending what kind of teacher you had, whether they decide to update on their own or not. So it did give me a good foundation of understanding teachers more. But as far as learning, it did put a lot of onus on us in terms of the limitations that we learned from the school district, what they could do. My high school principal was my mom's old school dance instructor when she was in high school. And so I knew her already. So she would talk about things that are going to school district. I'm like, my goodness, this is frustrating for you guys. And I'm hearing that as a student. I'm like, I can imagine you all who want to teach because you're here. Because you're not here for the money if you're a teacher. And if you are, you're going to the college level. You know what I mean? So you're not in high school teaching bad kids. You do it for the love, and you don't get that same love from the school district. It's terrible.
Yeah, I think there's a universal mismanagement of school districts throughout America in what they call urban school districts, and we spent lots of money. We've spilled lots of ink in trying to find solutions and trying to make it better. And there are ways in which it's improved, and there are ways in which we've made inroads and tried to close the achievement gap that exists between certain school districts and others. But there's still a long way to go, and different ways to go about it. And I'm still a teacher. I'm at a charter school, but it's a long, hard, nuanced, complex conversation to be had about how do we make sure that everyone has access to great education, everyone has access to safe schools, that everyone has access to the level of academic rigor and access to the intellectual traditions and histories so that they are prepared to become fully fleshed out adults that are able to just think well, that are able to help their own children, that are able to navigate complex societies that we inhabit, and that are able to just contribute. So it's hard. It's hard.
Also to that, one thing I forgot to mention, dealing with the school district was different because of how active the adults were in my life in terms of like my mom, grandmother, great grandmother. I remember we used to get those brain quest cards where you read them and do the back. So a lot of stuff I would read ahead and get in school. It does help to have active adults in your life who actually care about your education. A lot of the kids now, I know you probably see it, don't have active parents. Like I literally remember having different conversations with parents who complain their kids read too much, not too much homework, read too much, which is a wild thing out
Wow.
loud. Yeah. So I mean, I appreciate the adults in my life, not just my parents, but other adults, whether they were neighborhood or church going or other family members who were pressing upon not just education, but also reading and trying to continue to grow. Because it did help in school when there are times you all could have been lost in the cracks, still information to pick up on. So they did stress that a lot. So, I mean, I think that's part of it because it helps you be able to buckle down. When you need to buckle down in school, you buckle down. Just think about what you kind of were instructed on with what education is and growing up, and not just telling you to read, but why, the benefits of it.
You can't abdicate your responsibility to teach and educate your children, right? Like you can't put the whole onus on outside institutions. It needs to be a collaboration, and there needs to be a strong foundation at home of what values and what sort of beliefs and what sort of ideas are important, and making sure that we're giving them to our children, and giving them that space to develop, and when they do go to school, they are well prepared to perform and to behave and to have a sense of what it takes to be a good student. And so if we're all doing our job at home, if we're all preparing our kids to be conscientious, be hardworking, be well behaved, be nice, gentle, etc., then lots of the problems in the school districts that we went to would be ameliorated, right? Like they would decrease. But again, it's this idea that we need to put in the effort to make sure that we are developing ourselves and our families and our children, which sometimes we just don't have the energy based on how much work we how intensive our labor is, our jobs, the times, our own lack of preparation based on our own educational experience, etc. So nuanced, complex conversation.
You could go on forever. You're absolutely
Yes.
correct.
What are your political views?
Kind of been all over the place. Went from not voting to being align with the Democrat Party to for the last 6 years being independent, realizing that I can't just say one party is directly worse than the other. I mean, you can have our differences in regards to their functions are, but I feel like being in the middle allows you to be able to kind of see both sides because there may be okay, I take it back. There's been conversations I've had with clients who are Republican who voted against Democratic bills that actually favored them, and vice versa. People who vote Democrat but views align more Republican on certain issues, and you block yourself off because like a gang mentality, blue or red, instead of saying, well, I vote this way, but this actually makes sense for what I'm doing and how I align politically or religiously. So I just try to stay away from claiming one side or the other and just being aware of what issues do I feel strongly about.
I like that. Yeah. Thinking of policies discreetly, right? Like, how does this particular policy or stand affect me and affect society? And does it contribute to the way that I want our country or local polity to look like if it was implemented, right? And so instead of just wholesale, like you said, supporting a particular party, regardless of what it is that they stand for or the policies that they are pushing, then that means you're not thinking, you're just following your tribe because that's what you're supposed to do, like you said. I think I'm in the same place as you are, right?
Are you voting now?
And just huh
Are you voting now?
I think I am moving towards becoming more involved in local politics,
Still count.
especially.
That's fine. Still count.
I think in terms of national elections, I think there's a argument to be made just because of the way that the system is,
That's fair. That's absolutely
the way
fair.
that it's set up, that one individual vote really has no weight. And so I do think it's important, and this is a conversation we had a few years ago, that one doesn't become so cynical that they just wholesale dismiss the political system as rigged and corrupt and that nothing really matters. Because I think at the local level, voting and participating does matter, right? So going to the school council meetings and going to other political meetings based, for neighborhoods and for districts and voting for councilmen and local congressmen is important because those are the policies and laws that are going to impact and affect you more directly than national political laws do. And so I think it's something that I'm moving towards. Yes, in terms of Biden versus Trump, or Democrats versus Republicans, I think individual votes don't have the same level of impact, especially in places where it's kind of a foregone conclusion which way a state is going to go, and the electoral college votes are going to be given to. So if you're in California, I mean, it's kind of like it's going to be blue. If you are in New York, it's going to be blue. If you're in Alabama, it's going to be for the Republicans. And so maybe swing states, it would make more sense for you to participate and vote. But even there, a place like Philadelphia, is going to be Democratic. And so it becomes more of a matter of the certain counties and places where there are really contested, where the Republican versus Democrat candidates are contested. And so maybe moving to those areas and finding them is where national presidential votes really matter. But at the end of the day, that's not practical. And so that's where I'm at.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I agree with all that, especially with the whole, local level. That impacts you more. I mean, I know Trump and Biden are presidential impacts over the course of time, but local impacts immediately and in the future. It impacts both more directly. Whereas the national seems to stir people up more. It's more of an emotional conversation, whereas, like you said, local, that's going to impact you directly, immediately on your city's budget, what you're spending money on, where it's going, how come, whether or not you're in a big city is homeless and they can't do anything about it. It's a lot of stuff.
I agree. Are you religious?
No, I'm not religious.
Care to elaborate a little bit on that? And
Oh, it's funny. Ruth and I have had these conversations. So Jehovah's Witness for a long time. No longer that, but was still spiritual. Believed as a Christian, but didn't really read or go to church or anything. Didn't dabble into trying to figure out because my faith started feeling a certain way. Trying to understand myself as whether if I'm Christian, atheist, or agnostic. And I realized I'm more agnostic in terms of believing that something probably does maybe exist, but maybe not, but can't really prove it because I'm not a full blown atheist. I know people who are. I listen to atheists talk. I'm like, I'm not there, right? I know I'm not there, so I can't say I am. They've had, I don't know where this term came from. Have you heard of an omnis before? Yeah,
Mhm.
it was that term people use in terms to describe somebody who isn't necessarily directly aligned with a religion per se, but is open and respects everyone else's beliefs. It's always a new term being made up all the time. So right. But just overall, just agnosis is where I lie at. I can't fully say that something doesn't exist, but nothing that's showing me proof that this does. But I don't want to close off the possibility of saying that there isn't a God or so.
So omni as in all around, right? Like all encompassing.
Yeah, 'cause that's part of the reason why I don't shut off because I'm like, well, maybe there is, and if there is, I got some questions because the questions have not been answered since youth, right? It's more so just when you're raised a certain way, you fall into that, and that becomes a part of your identity because you grew up there, you feel comfortable there, you meet friends and family members and potential romantic partners within the confines of the religion you grew up in, but you don't necessarily get things answered because you're told this is the way.
So yeah, like this entrenched authoritarianism, right, where you're supposed to just submit because it's the law as given to you, and questioning is seen as disrespectful because there is only one truth, and that truth you need to just accept. Whereas it should be more dialogical, and you should be able to have conversations about this particular truth.
Because that's Zion trying to open the door. In every religious text, there's always that conversation of this is what God or God say, and you have to accept what it is, or else you're bad. You know, and that shouldn't be the case because it does kill the line of free thought. You told you have free thought, but then once you have a free thought, it becomes how dare you.
And for me, it's this sort of tension where all religions point to a belief in a transcendent world beyond just the material base reality of the human realm and the more animalistic realm. And I think we all as human beings have this intuition that there is something greater, that is a particular truth that we can accept, but then the details is where it becomes a bit convoluted, and we become a little bit more hesitant to accept, right? So who's to say that Islam or Christianity or Judaism or Buddhism or Taoism or paganism or more fetishistic religions or even more polytheistic religions such as Hinduism, who's to say that they have the particular correct version? And I think that's impossible to say. Like, it's impossible for our human intellectual capabilities to be able to even grasp or fathom how this transcendent realm could have created or made us. And so I think I'm always open to religions as being great technologies of the spirit and of the soul, and them being used as tools in the toolbox to help us become better people. But I don't like the fact that you have to you are sort of compelled to make a choice, and then once you make that choice you become tribalistic, like we were saying, where this is the only answer and everybody else is completely wrong. I know you had used the word omnist. Another term that I do like is perennialist, right? Like believing that there's a small truth in all religious traditions, and our task as progressive or human beings beyond just the more superstitious attachments to old religious traditions is to borrow the best teachings from all world religions and incorporate them into something that is more robust, that is more intelligent, that is less dogmatic and tribalistic.
Oh yeah, I mean, exactly. Because you have Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King, who was a reverend who used the Bible for advancing the cause, and you have former slave masters who use the Bible to keep people down. So, like you said, it's more about the person who uses it than the text, because you get people who are dogmatic and who are loose about the same document that they'll read, which is wild, like interpretations. So it goes into, if you could become a good person off of it, sure. I don't question anybody who uses it to be a better person, like, 'cause clearly this is guiding you. But if it's not, then we have questions. But it is very complicated. Whatever leads you to being a better person, your best person, I'm not going to object to it.
And I'm an agnostic myself, where it's this idea that we don't know, and I'm searching, I'm looking for the truth, the ultimate truth. But there's hasn't been anything that I've read, that I've experienced, that has given me the sense that there is some ultimate truth out there, that someone has discovered, that I need to accept. I think that it's still in the air, and it's still something that we're all sort of clamoring for. And there are things that move us in the direction of more religious views, but there are ways in which particular examples of religion aren't conducive to that more open, transcendent, and intuitive sense of greatness that we have inside.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you 100% on that.
Are you doing anything toward self improvement?
So we're trying to set my fitness up in regards to health. I think it was before Ziana was born. I remember I got my blood pressure was shown to be high. So not just working out, because that's something that's always been going on, but dietary, right? Trying to save it from certain foods. The bad foods taste so good, and typically in non-white cultures, the best food are the unhealthiest ones, right? With all the flavoring, all the fat, and it's so good. So just trying to get my nutrition up along with the fitness. Then we always talk about nonfiction books. I'm trying to get into fiction just to keep the imagination sharp. I feel like when I read nonfiction, which is fine, I find myself needing an escape through television, which is fine because there's certain TV shows I like, but finding the escape through fiction, looking to see where someone else's creativity took them, is actually something nice. We took Ziana to a book reading yesterday, which is like something I want to try and do, take her to more book readings to help her attention span focus, because she was getting up, walking around like, hey, sit still.
She's
Ended up
20 months, so
no,
understandable.
yeah. But I remember we talked about before watching baseball with your uncles. It helps you kind of focus because baseball is a sport that makes you focus. And so, like, it's something that I want to do. I ended up picking up I just started it today. Octavia Butler, Parable of the Sower. It's a fiction book written in '93. It's set in 2024. It's about a post-apocalyptic California, and I was kind of like, yeah, she got a forward by LeVar Burton. It's crazy, right? It's a two-part book. It was gonna be a three-part, but she ended up dying before she finished the third part. But so far, I started it this morning. It's actually pretty well written. It's set up almost like in a Blade Runner journal style. Just dabbling in imagination. I want to try and get to that because the last couple books I've read have been nonfiction and great reads, but it is a lot. I think still in the finishing the Art of War, right? So I got to finish that. Before that, it was the new Jim Crow, and these are like heavy books, which is fine. It's just sometimes you want to have an escape.
It's an escape that is also so edifying, because inhabiting the mind of great writers who are great thinkers helps you to see how others might experience the world, and deep questions of experience, and deep questions about morality, etc. So I've always loved fiction for what it does to me in terms of helping me understand the psychology of myself, and of others, and how deep questions of mortality, deep questions of love, deep questions of friendship can be fleshed out and analyzed in a way that isn't scientific or hyper rational. So I think it is important for us to discover those books and writers who are able to make us more spiritually and psychologically adept, and more understanding of the human experience.
Yeah, it does something to us, and then it helps you with your own ability to kind of not get so rigid, like you said, because especially with kids, man, sometimes you get the parents who are so rigid with their kids, and all we're going to be doing is giving them books that are creative books, right? We're not giving these babies and children nonfiction books right now. So it does help you keep in tab with that other part of your brain, creative side, especially as we go through life and we as adults don't typically tap into that creative side as often as we should, because we often talk about people who tap into that side. We don't show a full appreciation for them as we should in our society. So it keeps us young in that sense too.
And to go back a little bit, the fact that you're reading Octavia Butler is amazing because I have three other friends who also absolutely love her and have been trying to get me to read her. So you're the fourth person, which is giving me a sign that maybe I should read Octavia Butler.
Yeah, I never even tripped off anything until it was recommended yesterday in the bookstore. They just opened two new books as the same company. They use a shared space in one, and they got a new store opening by the shop next month. And I'm like, okay, so it was a recommendation, Black History Month and Black fiction artist and author. I mean, and it's, so far so good. Haven't
Yeah.
gotten deep in it, but I knew I had to stop 'cause I knew we were about to record. But it was just like, okay, this is pretty good. I like my
You're
reading.
about to you're about to hit me up and it's like, yo, bro, I can't record the
I
podcast.
can't,
This
I
book is
can't.
too good. I'm too hypnotized by the sentences and the world building that yeah, we're gonna have to postpone and reschedule.
Well, yeah, 'cause I
I
was,
would
yeah,
I would have understood that. Like I've been so just hypnotized by books before that I understand it completely. Like
because the Ford is written by LeVar Burton, and I'm like, it had me hyped up reading LeVar talk about it because I was like, oh, LeVar reading Rainbow had me got.
mhm.
I started reading. I'm like, okay, I see what LeVar is getting at. It's nice to be able to dabble into fiction. So that and to way I'm bettering myself also is within the profession as well, trying to view how I can improve my own services as well. Because it betters me too, because it keeps me from just getting lost in the shuffle of just work, work, work. Now it becomes, all right, how can I better myself? Because now we're talking about a career versus a job.
Mhm.
This is a job. I don't care about that. You people who work jobs every day don't care about better themselves their jobs. Give me my check and let me go. But now it's a career. And the same with you. You're trying to better yourself in your career because this is what you take seriously. This is what you do.
Mhm. Yeah, and there's pride in being the best that you can be at a given task that you've chosen, even if it is just a job, even if it's something that you don't necessarily love or enjoy. You should take pride in doing your best at that particular thing because that's an important element of societies running smoothly and groups and communities being able to work.
100%.
Any big regrets in your life so far?
I don't know if it's a regret. It is like an alternate reality. Sometimes I do wonder what would have happened if I stayed in college and became a teacher. Because I remember telling you I was supposed to be an algebra teacher. I was going at track in sophomore year. I was like, I'm tired of this. So I do wonder sometimes what would have happened if that would have continued. Like how would that have turned out? But like big regrets? No, because like a lot of things that kind of went left sometimes actually ended up working out for the better. Even barbering became, it worked out, but it's still one thing sometimes I wonder how life would have been different if I fell into this line and went that way. Or I don't know if it's a regret, but I do wonder if how life would have been different if I went to an out of the area school. Being in Oakland, going to Cal State Hayward, now East Bay, it's a little different. You're local. I remember applying to Cal State LA. I sent my application down here, and I do remember applying to University of Hawaii just because I didn't think there's any shot I was going that far. But I just wanted to see. Right. But Cal State LA was more of a realistic possibility. So I have some cousins down here. And I wonder how that would have changed. Because in the process of deciding between what major to go to and ended up on teaching, I used to work at the school district had a TV network, KDOL. They had an on-air tutoring and behind the camera for a job that was going on for a lot of us. And getting in contact with some of the people who worked there, a lot of them were actually in the industry. And I remember latching on to a couple of them and realizing that behind the camera or on the camera careers were a possibility. That and then the third one, the three ones, they all revolve around the same time. This is all like '04 to '06 time frame. And the last one was we had a theater class my freshman year, the the second quarter, the winter quarter. It was in our block we had up there. It was a ancient Greek history block, and we did a lot of reading from those ancient Greek plays. And I remember goofing around in class and the teacher not taking me seriously, but a couple of times he'd be on the stage. I'd hear her while I'm doing the acting, like, yo, he's actually kind of good. I'm talking like, what would have happened if I had did that? Because the way she said it, she's like, she would tell me in class all the time, you don't shut up. If you shut up and actually just focus on acting, you could be good at this. And I like whatever. So sometimes I do wonder like what could have happened because of that. Not like anything. So like it's like these things aren't regrets, but they're like alternate realities, right?
Okay.
Because this is fine, and I had no issue with what's going on. But that is, that's a crucial time, 17 and 19. I do wonder how that would have turned out. But overall, like it's not like a regret. It's more of a I've daydreamed that before about those different things and got lost in a daydream for like a couple minutes. Like, what could I be struggling? Would it be good? Would it be bad? Or I become disillusioned and quit it? Like, how would that have worked out?
Maybe a less strong version of regret. Maybe like we could call it what ifs.
What if? That's all. This is what ifisms,
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, we can do that because I think that's what it is, more of what if than regret. Because regret is something that hangs over you, like, man, missed out.
Yeah, painful.
Yeah, I don't think I have like stuff like I missed out on, but not like painful.
Yeah.
Nothing ever been like, oh, just debilitating.
Yeah, well said. Last three questions. What's your favorite book?
Favorite book. See, I've read so many books and I had to look up the title because I always remember the book. I haven't read it since my freshman year of college, but I always remember reading it. A Lesson Before Dying stuck out with me because I remember this was like the first book we read. Because, we did fiction and nonfiction in high school and elementary and middle. This is the first book directly after high school. And I remember reading and thinking to myself, oh, this is why people actually enjoy reading. Because I'm an adult. And even though it's an assigned reading, like I remember reading it two times within a time period supposed to read it. I read it for the assignment. I remember rereading it afterwards. I don't think I've done that before with the book we had assigned in school. It was young black dude in the South Mississippi accused of murder. He gets the death penalty. And basically his lawyer is saying he can't murder somebody. He's a hog. Hogs don't have the mind to kill. Basically dehumanizing him in terms of the defense to get him off. And it's really about another teacher, lawyer, black dude trying to get him before his death to understand that he is a human being, that he does have something to offer, and that he's not getting off, but just dying with dignity, dying, holding your head up, knowing that you are somebody, and not thinking yourself as a hog or as a subservient being. And it always stuck out because it's just the journey of it. I remember it became a TV movie. I remember our teacher had us watching in class. I remember we used to always talk about this, about it's better to read the book before you watch the movie. Because we read the book before we watched the movie. And then looking at like, okay, it says there's books I've read after seeing the movie. And I'm like, nah, it throws off the book. Right? I can still enjoy the movie, change the book and still know like, all right, this is what it is, but it's still a good production. That was one of those moments that always flashed me back to our conversations. It stuck out in regards to keeping your humanity. Yeah. See, it's a book I have a lot of books I don't go back and double read and, go back like that. That was one of the ones I always remember going back and rereading. I think we've all read some interesting books in our life. Counting Monte Cristo is a very interesting book having to read in school. Very fascinating. Didn't know it was by a black dude until I was well in my 20s. But just realizing I had no desire to go back and reread that even though I read it. I might have to now, Tom, I might have to go buy that A Lesson Before. I might have to go buy that and reread that. Now got me thinking about it again. I might have to go back and purchase it.
Do you have a Kindle?
Kindle? No. I do. I probably should have it, but I like turning the pages. I don't know why.
I do too. But the convenience of a Kindle won me over. It's hard to sort of take a Luddite perspective on things when the convenience and the ease of it just eventually defeats any sort of philosophical criticisms or hesitancies one might have.
I'll probably get there right now because Barnes and Nobles are still around. Shockingly, I end up getting a Barnes and Nobles card, so I can take Zion up there, get some books from her there. And it's like, all right, so now I have an excuse to continue to buy.
You know what's funny? Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
You good.
I got a Barnes and Noble gift card for Christmas, and I just downloaded the Nook app and just got it digitally because I was just like,
Well,
I'm just used to like the convenience of it now because I'm like, okay, I could get 3 books with the gift card and carry them around in my backpack, while I commute to school in the train, etc. Or I could just have my Kindle and my phone and just travel lightly
well,
and
because
just
you
access the
moved, you
books.
had you had
Like,
that treasure chest of books. I remember.
listen, exactly. Like people, like I'm coming off like I don't, like physical books. No, I'm coming from like a extreme love of physical books to just having change. It's
See, like
minimalist, simpler, easier way to consume information and books.
yeah, I can
And
take it more seriously from you because I've seen that chest. You're not some person talking about books as if you needed technology. You are coming from I have a whole separate box just for the books, like how girls have shoes. And I remember seeing them. I respected it, right? So hearing you say it makes me be like, okay, I have to consider it
yeah.
because I know you like the purism of reading from the
And
book.
the books you see in the back are my collection winnowed down to just my favorite books, which has now, like, the ones on the top are just books that I found for free at the Philadelphia Public Library. And I'm like, I don't want to make this collection grow any bigger, but they're really good books. Like, I got Underworld by, Delilo. I think that's how you pronounce his name, for free. It's a huge book, but I'm like, I have to get it. And I've gotten so many other classics, which is great for me, but also maybe a commentary on the reading habits and just the lack of understanding from the majority of people now that they are giving those books away because no one gets them. So, okay. Favorite movie?
This was one of the ones I was swearing up and down on. I was gonna have a hard time. So I don't know if I have one movie. I'm just gonna narrow this down to the Star Wars saga, Skywalker saga, because
Huh?
they have other Star Wars movies, but everything relating towards the Skywalker saga because it's probably the most impactful, at least on my life, in terms of my grandfather got my mom into it. My mom got me into it. Ziana's gonna have no choice but to be into it. So I like it's like a family thing. I could name a bunch of other movies, but everything that I was going to name, like, no, what about this one? And I like so many movies.
Have you liked the prequels? Is that what they're called?
The
The
pre-
new one? Go
oh,
ahead.
okay, the new ones that came out recently were the sequels. Those are trash.
Sequels. Okay.
Those are trash. But it all tied with all 9 of those movies are basically part of the Skywalker saga, dealing with
Okay.
him getting up, then Luke, and then Luke and Leia going on and teaching. I mean, they changed it from the books, which is fine because the books could have kept it going forever. But it's hard to keep going forever in
So when
regard
you said Skywalker Saga, you meant
to 9. Yeah.
all
Be-
9 movies. Okay, so because I know people, the middle three with Jar Jar Binks, and
Okay, so the order is funny. The middle
people
three,
hate those.
well, the middle three are are the prequels
Okay, yeah, that's
because Lucas wrote it out of order for some reason. The
uh-huh.
originals are technically sequels.
Okay.
You
But
know,
you
it's just
still like those three prequels
well,
because a lot of people seem
it's,
to.
it's not about the 3 prequels and the 3 sequels versus the original because you get people who will argue about each subsect. It's more
Yeah.
about the overarching story.
Okay.
It does become one essential movie, right?
That's a lot of hours in viewing.
Yeah, but yeah, I had to think about more so in regards to what it's meant
Yeah.
my life, how much time I spent talking about this, how much energy devoted to it, and different parts of my life, how it's all meant. The
Yeah.
prequel trilogy has grown on me more. Those were teenage years; those meant a lot. The sequel trilogy just reminding it's part of the story. It is an example of unfulfilled potential in regards to the scripts because they could have been so much more. But we can get into that later in regards to corporation Disney getting involved and killing a man's dream with $4 billion, and now there's more creativity. We can get into that later because that's essentially what happened. Paid $4 billion to George Lucas. He said, "Y'all just do what you want." They just started oversaturating the market with movies that had no point to it. Lost messaging. There's nothing wrong with messaging, but it's lost messaging. It's nothing consistent.
I'm gonna put you on the spot again. Now, out of all those 9 movies, if you had to pick just one,
Empire Strikes Back.
okay, there you go.
There's no hesitation. There's no
Okay.
literally between that. It was, yeah, I have no reason to debate that with anybody. That's mine. I'll stick to it. I'll die on that hill. I could turn that movie on right now and watch it. There's a couple movies I could turn on right now and watch and just be like, I'll watch it again.
I have a confession to make. I've never seen any of the original
I know.
Star Wars movies in their entirety.
We've had this conversation. I know.
Yeah,
I did.
you know what? 2024, I'm going to watch them. That's going to be my honoring of this friendship. I will watch those movies.
I will say for sure that your first time watching it now, it will not feel the same like I did because the technology is so much better. And be like, look at this trash. You're gonna say it no matter what because it's so the technology now is so much better. Story writing is better then, but it's the same thing I tell people about watching the original Blade Runner or watching the old Indiana Jones movies versus the new ones. The technology is not the same, but the story writing is better when you had
Yeah.
to focus on story and not keep things overly action for the simplistic short attention span of others.
And I think I'll enjoy it just because there's always this sort of retro nostalgia that we feel and that we appreciate, right? So it'll be fine.
And those movies I enjoy more so because that's one of the few ones I remember actually watching years of behind the scenes footage. So I'm like, it made more of an impact. My mom and I used to watch the behind the scenes footage and it come on A&E. Yeah, we getting
Okay.
old. A&E. Yeah, we ain't count A&E in a while. Yeah.
A&E now is like reality television,
Oh
etc.
yeah,
Whereas
all that stuff. Yeah, we used to
before
watch
it was completely different programming.
all the inside the actor studio. We used to
Yeah.
watch all that.
People don't. I mean, yeah, people don't know. It's interesting how they've rebranded and changed.
I hate it, but that's not obviously it's not for me.
Exactly. Favorite album of all time?
I remember last time telling you Nipsey's last album, but if we're gonna be honest, my favorite album was after that. Right now, it's probably it changes, but right now it's After Hours,
Who's that by?
the weekend, the one that came out during COVID. It's probably that one. Is because of I remember just when we were locked down too. The point we was in, listening to it. I mean, it was a fascinating story because the album covers a story of some days of him going through a breakup, how he handles it, knocking something else down, going to Vegas, getting tossed up, coming through his realization of on the other side of the breakup. It is a good story, written in the album form to tell. It didn't get the awards it deserved because of the whole Super Bowl performance debacle with the Grammys. And, it's weird stuff. And he's a weird dude too. He is kind of a weird dude, but I don't expect anything else from my creatives. I kind of expect creatives to be a little off, a little weird. It makes sense because you have to be a little different in order to get to this point where you can say, this is what I'm going to write about and sing about or act about or read out loud. You have to be a little off. Yeah. If we ever re-record this again, I'll have a different album for you. I'm not even gonna lie to you. It's gonna change.
It shows you we're not stagnant and static, and that we change and we grow, and so I don't expect anything else.
Yeah, I don't think I just have one album. I always wanted to be those people who had that one album. I have uncles who have that Stevie Wonder album, a song, The Key of Life as their favorite album. A lot of people, or they have Thriller or whatever. I don't think I'll ever have that one album that I'll hear and be like, oh, that's my favorite. Because I'll hear somebody else's and be like, oh, like Illmatic.
Elmat, yeah, 94, but yeah,
94, that one too. I'm like, this is a quick list. I didn't realize how quick it was.
yeah,
I'm like, this is actually okay. All
10
right.
songs, right? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's another one who, if you ask me again, I might say that one day because I might be listening to it a lot. So it just depends, just go back and forth.
Yeah, sometimes people say I'm a contrarian. Probably am, but sometimes I might just want to argue and say that it was better than Illmatic.
There are times where we've
You know
had
what
those.
I'm saying?
Where I've been like, "Where you just doing it just us?" Just cut. Like, it's fine, and I'd be like, "It's fine. We're here. I want to hear where he's going with this." But I'd be in the chair like, "Larry, you're doing this for no reason. You don't have to do
Let's,
this."
yeah. Who knows? It was never consciously that I was trying to be a contrarian, but maybe that's just my disposition, and I'm constitutionally that way. Who knows?
I only notice it because I do it too sometimes. I'm like, I do it too sometimes, so I get it. It's not even like on purpose. You're just like, oh, okay. I'm here now. Let me go ahead and see where this goes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for being part of the What's Lacking podcast, and we'll keep in touch and we'll continue having great conversations.
Absolutely, my man. Let me know.
All right, take care.
Yes, sir. You too.